You can't break into this country and expect to get a free bag or a free positioning because you broke in. Anytime I think you get liberties and freedoms off of the back of doing something wrong to actually get those liberties and freedoms, I got to question it.
The Supreme
Okay.
Court said it will decide if President Trump can limit the constitutional right to citizenship at birth. President Trump, you might remember, issued an order at the start of his second term to eliminate the law which automatically grants citizenship to anyone born in the United States. Birthright citizenship has long been understood to be required under the 14th Amendment. I want to bring in CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson for her analysis. Jessica, I'm always grateful to have you in moments like this. Explain for the audience what is and what the Trump administration has said ought to be.
So what currently is the 14th Amendment that we've understood for more than 100 years, well over 100 years, to say that it doesn't matter what the status of your parents are. If you're born in this country, then you are a citizen of this country. That particular view was supported by an 1868 case and by subsequent congressional statutes. So we have, ever since the 14th Amendment was ratified after the Civil War, understood that the only question really is, are you born in this country? And with the caveat of maybe if your parents, in fact, serve as foreign consulates, for instance. But the question now is whether or not the president can, by executive order, undermine that understanding. The Supreme Court's going to take up this case. I think this was always destined for the court. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think this is maybe 8-1, 7-2, that no, the president cannot do this.
And do you think, Jessica, that's why the court took it? Because as you well laid out, we have precedent and statute. Do you think the court wanted to make an affirmative declaration that those are the governing elements of this question?
Or at least four members of the court. As you know, and you're a student of the court as well, all it takes in order to decide to take a case is 4 votes. And so I think there easily could have been 4 to say the president has tried to change the understanding of the Constitution by executive order. We should be clear that there has been no court that has agreed that he can do that. This executive order, which I believe was signed on the first day of his presidency, never went into effect. But yes, to your question, I think this is one of those big constitutional questions that, generally speaking, the Supreme Court is the final word.
And Jessica, just for the sake of argument, what would American law and immigration policy look like if the Trump perspective were to prevail?
Great question. So if the Trump perspective prevails, then I think what you see is, frankly, in the short term, an administrative mess in the sense of trying to figure out who is a citizen and who is not. What is the status of newborn's parents? Can you prove that when you go into, I mean, this is a bit of an exaggeration, but can you prove when you go into labor and delivery that in fact both parents are US citizens or have legal status? With respect to how this would affect other areas of the law, what would be the ripple effect? I mean, it really would be that there would be fewer citizens. And I think, again, the big short-term impact would be a lot of paperwork, a lot of sorting, a lot of proof to determine who now falls outside of the protection of the 14th Amendment.
Jessica Levinson, always a pleasure.
Okay, so let's stop there. Got one more for you. The biggest part in this is, how did they get in to obtain citizenship? I keep, my biggest issue with this is that we can't reward just blatant illegal activity with citizenship. When I say blatant illegal activities, if someone jumps over the border, they land in the United States of America, she's pregnant, or let's say she has a baby, she's pregnant knowingly or unknowingly. She came here knowingly with the intention to have the baby. Unknowingly, okay. I don't think we can rest on whether it's knowingly or unknowingly. We do have to rest on how you got in. If you're a green card holder and a visa card holder, and you're here working and living, going to school, and you get pregnant, I think I think it should be honored. If your parents are legal citizens before you're conceived, I believe, yes, you should. To be a U.S. citizen, which in this birthright citizenship setup, it was originally set up for the slaves. Slaves who were brought here, forced to be here, and had children here. The country had to recognize them as being legal and having the right to be citizens of the country. And when that took place, we saw the fight that took place down the line, not just to say, okay, you're a citizen, but you're a citizen with the right to vote, a citizen with the right to bear arms, a citizen with the right to own land, things of that nature. These rights that are given to us aren't we're not nobody's entitled should be entitled to partake of the sovereignty of our country. I don't know why we keep making this as everyone should have a right to this. People should have a right to have shelter, but they shouldn't have a right to own homes. Just because you because you have shelter, you should have shelter, food, clothing, and shelter. Yes, a human right, this necessity. But when we go to owning a property, for example, no, you shouldn't have to. That's no different to me than if you go to citizenship. Yes, you got in. Yes, you're living here. Yes, you had a child, but does that child get recognized as a U.S. citizen? There is a part in there where he is right. Now, to turn back and roll the clock on everyone that's been here and they at that point of time, their parents were citizens, I think that's crazy. I think that's not doable. I think that's going to cause more issues than even possible. I don't think we have any time in place. I don't even think any laws can even put in place to do that. But if we put our foot down and say, now, if you broke into the country, you should not be allowed to gain citizenship because you broke in. Now, if you have an asylum claim and we vet that to be authentic, true, and you get that green card and then you become a naturalized citizen, yeah, you have a child, yes, they should. And that could potentially mean that some children will grow up in the same household, one not being a citizen and one being a citizen. And the opportunities should be given to the ones who are not citizens because they were not innately, they didn't have a choice. Their parents made the choice. They should have some type of some program where they can go through the process to do that. But to believe that just because you broke in and you had a child or children on U.S. soil, you're entitled to all the rights of a U.S. citizen. You haven't paid into the pot. You haven't contributed nothing to our society. You haven't contributed anything through the growth of this country. Oh, no, look, I would say that. Y'all like, damn, what the hell that came from? Well, you haven't done anything, man. You haven't done anything. You haven't done a lick to actually get it. And the manipulation of our law is what's being used against us. The freedoms that we hold true are being twisted and used against us. The freedom to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that's for within the sovereignty and the jurisdiction of this country. It's not because of the world. It is a true fact for the world, but it is a realized fact in our country. And it should not be something that's played with, that's just given away just like that. Because the same countries that these people are fleeing from, okay, we see already with what's happening in Somalia, the fraud, they're sending the money back over. So not all of them, but a good amount. 85%, 85% already living off of food stamps in the welfare program. So, yes, there needs to be some banner, some type of line drawn in the sand, regardless of how much it upsets people. Because the U.S. taxpayer, the U.S. citizen, the U.S. business person, the U.S. entrepreneur, the U.S. worker, they're the only people that's really paying the price for it. They're really paying the price. And it's a shame that most of them don't care. Why? Because this open borders, globalized society is something that really, really, really fires up people on the left. And I would dare to say is even some rhinos that don't give two shits about it too. And rhinos being Republican in name only. So should we have it? Yes. Should it be open? No. And how it's obtained should be the question. If you broke in to get it, hell no, you shouldn't get it. You shouldn't do that legal shit to get legal shit. There's no way, I haven't seen anywhere where you go and knock out the person that's in the McDonald's a cashier, grab the money from behind the register and run away. And when they catch you, they say, keep some of the money in your pocket. It's no problem. We'll go ahead and help you deal with the charges of theft. Okay. Why do we can't reward that? Why the hell reward this? And don't tell me this is a misdemeanor, because my other perspective is it shouldn't be a misdemeanor. It should be, you shouldn't have habeas corpus, and for that reason, there's no due process and there's a way to go back. But I understand the human rights aspect of it. Not the human rights that someone has a chance, but the human rights that that power can also be used to manipulate that situation. Power can be used against the people who find themselves here, and they can find themselves in a worse situation. But I say, what's worse? Is it easier for us to hold power accountable, or for us to hold individuals running around in our country that we don't even know is here, okay, or they were supposed to show, but they never showed? Is it easier to enforce that? We clearly see right now it's not, because look at how they're fighting ICE. Look at how they're throwing bricks at them, shooting at them, attacking them, different things like that. That's like trying to snuff out a bunch of fucking roaches in your house. You let it in and it becomes a German roach infestation. That rubs people the wrong way, but that's what ends up happening, because there are so many dark places that people can hide and they can stay. And if you don't know where they are, and if you have other people in power protecting them, then we end up now in a power struggle between the ones who the ones who want them to stay because they have alternative motives, whether it's business, free labor, cheap labor, drugs, cartel ties, whatever it may be, against the ones that now we have to hold accountable for this massive power that's been given to them in order to make sure that nobody stands up and does anything mischievous or ill will in a system that people break in and they're not allowed to stay, or their children aren't citizens. Things have to be enforced as regardless of whatever you put into place. It's no different than business. And that's why Trump is there. That's why he's doing that. That's why some of us, uncomfortable as this time may seem when it comes to a pullback in the market, we still understand that some discomfort is necessary in order for the boat to float straight.
Congratulations. Well done.
And we don't understand that as a whole. We don't understand that there are times and seasons where we're going to have a level of unsettled disruption, discomfort, and the boat is on the water and it's always rocking. There's always some fucking storm. We get that. But when we stand back and say, hey, we're not going to let the storms happen, we're going to avoid the storms. Hey, don't even cause any rocking of the boat, because if you do that, that means that things are going to be unsettled and some people may fall off and some people may have motion sickness. So what? The boat needs to be rocked. The boat needs to be rocked. And I do understand the boat needs to be rocked. Of all people, I do. Because for my daughters to grow up in a place where they're going to school in a city, in a college in a city, and they don't see the death and attack, the death and aggression and just straight blatant infringement on their body, their rights, due to someone being an illegal citizen living here and deciding that, hey, he sees them, he wants to do something ruly and illegal and just wrong and just nasty to him. I have to care about that. I have to care about that. As a father, I have to care about that. And what father wouldn't care about that? What father wouldn't care about that? Hey guys, like, subscribe, follow for more content. This thing is, I've got my opinions. Some people may like it, you may dislike it, but at the end of the day, hey, this is my experience. Let's go.
Earlier this year, Birthright Citizenship demonstrators raised their voices outside the Supreme Court. Advocates were calling for the right enshrined in the 14th Amendment to remain intact. They say they don't agree with President Trump's executive order seeking to deny U.S. citizenship to children born on American soil to non-citizen parents.
One more right he's trying to take from us, and I don't agree with how many rights he's trying to strip.
The country's highest court is now taking up the constitutionality of President Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship. The Trump administration's order says children born on U.S. soil to parents who are in the country temporarily or without legal authorization will be denied U.S. citizenship, an action some bipartisan immigration reform groups believe could have widespread implications.
Think about if you were having a kid for a second, and based on where the ambulance took you, you might have different citizenship for a child. You might get checked for your citizenship.
This summer, the justices heard oral arguments about whether lower court judges have the legal power to impose nationwide injunctions blocking executive actions across the country. Ultimately, in a 6-3 vote, the court ruled to limit nationwide injunctions in birthright citizenship cases. With the High Court expected to hear and rule on the future of birthright citizenship, immigration rights groups say it's a decision that's been heard and determined before.
This has been the case, not just in the 14th Amendment. It's been affirmed by the Supreme Court 4 times over the last century and a half. This is settled opinion. This is settled law.
The Supreme Court is expected to hear arguments next year and will likely hand down a decision by the end of June.
So, like I said, I don't believe that this is something that should be totally like kicked out. But the fact is, we do have a lot of notorious people that are using birthright citizenship to break into our country and to just stay, and have babies, and their babies are citizens and they go to school and they benefit from tax dollars that our children may not benefit from or that we've paid already. So it does need to be addressed. It shouldn't be something that they just say, oh, well, we have this in law online and it's been there and they're just rocking the boat. I think the boat needs to be tweaked a little bit. I think it needs to be tweaked. And 4 out of 9 of the Supreme Court justices believe that, because it takes 4 out of 9 Supreme Court justices in order to bring back, to bring up or to address a topic, for them to weigh in and to vote on it again. Okay? Yes. So that means at least we're close to at least half. So I believe it's 4 out of 9 at least. And now I say 4 out of 9. It could have been 6 out of 9. It could have been 5 out of 9. But the minimum is at least 4. So we know at least 4 of them have some questions about it at the very least.